Believe that the currency we use is a huge part of the answer, and I believe that the internet deserves and requires a native currency.
Hey there, and welcome to my channel, The Paper Bag Investor. Today I want to look at Square stock and its relationship with Bitcoin and try and ask the question, could Square's Cash App be a platform for widespread Bitcoin use? So yeah, let's get into it. And before I say much more, I just want to make it really clear, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not personal financial advice. I'm a guy with a paper bag on his head who loves investing and thinking about the future. And if you love investing and thinking about the future, I really encourage you, hit that subscribe button down below. While you're at it, you can hit the like button too. It helps me out if you don't mind. But again, if you love investing, long-term growth investing, and trying to look at investing with new eyes, look beyond the sort of simple assumptions that most people make, but look at it from new angles, I encourage you, hit that subscribe button down below. But let's get into this video where we talk about Square stock and Bitcoin. And I want to mention I did a video about a week or so ago on what the long-term vision for Square stock was, and kind of based off of what Elon's what I call his fintech master plan for PayPal, which really PayPal never really executed on that plan. But I could see Square possibly executing on that plan. And if you haven't seen that video yet, I'll link it down in the description below. But really, it came down to, in my mind, Square stock being super aggressive and growing their Cash App ecosystem, making basically one master bank that they aggressively grow its user base. And the big advantage if the user base grew rapidly and exponentially is that it's a very powerful network effect, because the more people that have the Cash App and are using the Cash App means the more people can instantly and seamlessly send money to one another. And really, that's the biggest financial problem I see in the world right now, is the ability to just quickly, easily send money back and forth between one person and another. You can video chat with 100 people in the world at once, but it's actually quite difficult to exchange money. And if more and more people were on the exact same platform, such as the Cash App, it would be much simpler to do that. So again, if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it down below, and I encourage you to watch it after this one. But in this video, I want to look at Bitcoin a little bit and see how Bitcoin could fit into Square's even longer term vision. And when we look at Bitcoin, there's a lot of Bitcoin enthusiasts are very excited about Bitcoin because there's a lot of advantages to Bitcoin as a currency, or any similar cryptocurrency as a currency. And I would say the biggest advantage really of a cryptocurrency is that it works with a blockchain. And if you're not familiar, what is a blockchain? Here's how I understand it. The blockchain is like a perfectly secure and encrypted history of the transactions of any piece of currency. So if you have a Bitcoin and you spend it on something, and someone else spends it on something else, and someone else spends it on something else, it's not the detailed personal information, but there is a way to track exactly what that coin has done and where it's gone, the history of it, and who really has ownership of it and what was done with it. And as an example, I like to think of a blockchain that kind of functions. If you would imagine a society that all lives on an island, maybe a more primitive society, and they, for their currency, they have one big giant stone wall, and everyone, when they buy or sell anything, they go to that wall, and there's a tally on that wall where they keep track of who owns how much of a currency. Currency doesn't have to be a real thing in their hands, like a piece of paper or a dollar bill or a piece of gold. It's literally something maybe they invent in their minds, and they all know there's a certain amount of the currency. And on this stone wall, they inscribe who owns what, and they keep basically a public record that shows you own this because you bought this house, or you own this because you bought this piece of land or animal or whatever it is, piece of property. And it's basically this public ledger that controls and tracks the transactions, so everyone knows where things are at. And I'm sure there's some holes in that analogy when you compare that exactly to cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, but I think that gives you some idea of what blockchain is. And that's what the blockchain is, what Bitcoin functions on. So that's one of the main advantages of Bitcoin. But there's also other advantages of Bitcoin over other currencies, other fiat currencies. And I'm just reading from bitcoin.org. What are the advantages of Bitcoin? Number one is payment freedom. It's possible to send and receive Bitcoins anywhere in the world at any time. So there's no holidays. There's never a close. You can just send and receive money at any time. You can also choose your own fees, it says, which means it's basically a free market for how much is charged in fees for sending and receiving. Next point is that there's fewer risks for merchants. This point is basically saying that because Bitcoin transactions are more secure and irreversible, it's much easier for businesses to go into countries or areas where there may have been more fraud or risk of fraud with their transactions, because now they know if they're selling to someone with Bitcoin, they know they are in fact being paid. It's also saying that there's higher security and control, there's less chance of identity theft, and overall they're saying there's a large degree of transparency and neutrality with Bitcoin because there's no one country behind it, there's no one party behind it or a party of interest behind it. It's really one evolving organic currency. And these are all great advantages and are things that should get me excited about Bitcoin and do, but I still see one current problem with Bitcoin, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm still learning lots about Bitcoin. So if you think I'm missing something, please let me know in the comments down below. But in my mind, the way things currently are in the world, I just don't see how they currently are. I don't see Bitcoin catching on as a global currency because it seems right now it's just too difficult to exchange. And it's much more similar to exchanging gold or any other more fixed asset. And in my mind, the network effects for it are, at this point, are just not strong enough to really make it grow exponentially and make it be used as commonplace use, where you're literally sending Bitcoin back and forth to your friends just to pay them back for things or to pay for everyday purchases. You see, the thing about network effects is they can either cause massive dominating exponential growth, but they can also really crush the soul of something. And if there's not enough people using Bitcoin for it to really exponentially take off in everyday purchases, maybe there's people just accumulating it as stored value, but to really catch on as a currency, like I'm talking, if there's not enough people using it, then there's no reason for the next person to use it, and there's really no reason for it to catch on. And now this brings us back to Square and the Cash App, and really my initial question of whether the Cash App, could that be a platform for widespread Bitcoin use? And in short answer, I think yes, it probably could, and here's why. As explained in my last video, if everyone is under the same financial institution, say everyone just uses the Cash App and that's their whole banking software, and a majority of people in a certain market, say the United States, say I was said in my last video, maybe 200 million Americans are all using the Cash App and they're all seamlessly sending cash back and forth. It's super great, happy. And I think in that sort of scenario, the United States being a world leader, as I kind of explained in my last video, they really could put pressure on other governments and jurisdictions to increase the use of Cash App in those other areas. But that's still going to be the biggest risk is these other governments saying, no, we don't want your Cash App here. We don't want one bank in our jurisdiction. But the thing about the Cash App in that kind of scenario and Bitcoin is that the two could really become partners to solve each other's problem. Bitcoin has the ability to go global and across borders, but the Square and the Cash App would have the ability to make one banking ecosystem with software that makes those transactions really smooth, really seamless, and really easy to use. And I know that Jack Dorsey is huge on Bitcoin, and I think it's for this exact very reason. And this is really, I think, his ultimate long-term vision for the Cash App. So I'm going to play a little clip of him explaining some of this.
And that's why I'm such a huge believer in Bitcoin, because it just our biggest problem as a company right now is we cannot act like an internet company. Open a new market, we have to have a partnership with a local bank. We have to pay attention to different regulatory onboarding environments. And a digital currency like Bitcoin takes a bunch of that away where we can potentially launch a product in every single market around the world, because they're all using the same currency. And we have consistent understanding of regulation and onboarding and what that means. So I think the internet continuing to be accessible to people is number one, and then I think currency is number two. And it will just allow for a lot more innovation, a lot more speed in terms of what we can build and others can build, and it's just really exciting. So I mean, I want to be able to see that and feel that in my lifetime.
As a Square investor, I really love this clip because it shows Jack Dorsey, as the CEO of Square, really has this clear long-term picture of what Square and the Cash App could look like. And you see sort of his frustration. He says, we're like an internet company that can't act like an internet company because we can't, there's so many, you have to basically partner with local banks in every jurisdiction and country you go into with the Cash App and with their local currency. But if there was enough users on the Cash App and the Bitcoin took over, and it was simple and just as easy as sending a text message, you could send money with your Cash App securely and send Bitcoin to anyone in the world. I could see that taking over completely as one global currency. I could really see that scenario because it basically fixes Bitcoin's problem where you need some driver, you need some way to easily, cleanly exchange the money back and forth. And it fixes Square's problem that says we want to grow rapidly and globally and allow people to send money seamlessly, quickly back and forth. And we want to make the software available to do that through the Cash App, and make sort of one banking software where you can get your loans and your mortgages and your investments all in one place. But with every jurisdiction having their own currency, they can't really do that. But with Bitcoin, I really could see Square actually making that happen. I'm making this video, and I'm mostly a Tesla investor. I'm huge on Tesla as well. But I'm almost convincing myself to buy more Square and kind of double down on this. Not that I'm telling you to do that. This is not personal financial advice. But I am thinking about it myself because I could really see that happening. But what Square's role in that sort of scenario would be is they'd be kind of like the facilitator and bank for this one global currency. I feel like though for Square, for them to really get there though, they still need to grow and dominate in one market and in one currency. I think the USA, and really become the bank and the cash trading platform for the United States. And then from there, they can grow laterally into other countries and really emphasize how great Bitcoin is. For rather than trying to exchange currencies, you can just exchange Bitcoins. And I think there'd be maybe a transition where people are still using Bitcoin kind of as an asset, where they're changing from their currency to Bitcoin, then back to the other currency or the other, whatever the other thing of value, good or service is. But I think over a period of time, that could transition to really people just sending Bitcoin for the things they want. And I also think that there are still execution risks with Square because if they don't do that, if they don't really conquer one market and the Cash App really doesn't explode with growth, then I don't know if they're going to have that sort of leverage and have enough of a network to really drive the Bitcoin growth as an actual currency. And if it doesn't drive as an actual currency, then it's quite different than just it being an asset. Maybe it'll always stick around as an asset, kind of like buying gold as an asset, but I don't know if it would actually catch on as a currency, as cryptocurrency enthusiasts would hope. And one last little thing about Square, I really see Square as kind of a heads I win big, tails I lose investment. There's major execution risks, and if they don't really nail those, it could be in trouble as a company. But if they do execute well, and I think they very well might, because Jack Dorsey, I can see that is his vision for the company, then I could see them being an extremely valuable company, a much higher multiple than they currently are valued at. And those are the kind of investments I like, where I see massive upside and maybe some downside. Maybe there's scenarios where you could lose all your investment, but there's a sort of the flip side of the coin, sort of 50-50, where you see a massive, huge upside. But I've done enough talking. I really want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you think I'm out to lunch on this? Do you think Bitcoin would catch on its own? Do you think that Square and the Cash App, if that really took off, that then they could go global with the Cash App and also global at the same time with Bitcoin, those two technologies working hand in hand? Does that make sense to you, or is there something I'm missing? You know, as an investor, I really want to hear other people's opinions, even if they're agreeing with me or they're differing with me. I really want to hear those opinions and those thoughts, because as an investor, I really want to know what's actually true, not just what I think is right or what might be right or what might come true, but I actually want to hear enough opinions and thoughts and think so carefully about my investments that there's a very high chance that I will be right. And if I'm not right, I want to find that out. So again, let me know in those comments down below what you think about this. And if you enjoy this video, I encourage you, while you're at it, hit that like button. Really supports me, helps me out, helps my channel grow. And also hit that subscribe button while you're at it as well. Really appreciate it. Thanks you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Okay, take care.